Hello, and welcome to another edition of Unlock the Door Hit Radio here on UCY TV Productions. This is Michael Cross here, and hope that this will be a night of stimulating insight into issues that are facing the American public as well as, hey, the rest of the world nowadays. But I want to mostly center this on the United States. And what I'm going to talk about is bathrooms. Okay, hold just a moment. Just have to do a little plug here. Encourage people to follow me on Twitter at PsychoMike777 or click on the link that is provided here on this video once it goes to YouTube. Anyway, the thing I want to talk about is this whole thing with Obama and pushing the whole transgender thing in reference to bathrooms. Now, here, first of all, I just want to say this. And that is, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was once purported to have said that there's no such thing as, an accident in politics. If something happens, it was planned that way. And, there's controversy over whether he said that, but whoever would have said it, or I don't care if it was just some guy at a taco stand that said it. The thing is, it's true. And here we have an issue that just a couple of years ago, people would have thought the idea of erasing gender boundaries or biological sex boundaries, depending on, how you feel about gender and sexuality and stuff. But regardless, that you could have biologically male individuals in female bathrooms and vice versa. Now, the thing is, the really surprising thing is how much it went from being kind of a fringe issue, one that doesn't really involve a whole lot of people. And for the most part, the vast majority of people would be just like, whoa, what? To suddenly taking monumental prominence in both the media as well as the Obama administration. Now, the thing is this. I really personally would prefer that bathrooms be more private, okay? American bathrooms are set up like, those stalls, where you've got the toilets and this really thin thing in which, where someone can slide stuff underneath. I mean, 1 minute you're sitting in the guy's room and all of a sudden some congressman, is trying to pass you flowers and roses and ask you out for the evening. If you're a guy. And the thing is that there's no privacy, okay? Seriously, there's no privacy in that sense. I mean, if the person that's sitting next to you happened to have eaten something at a restaurant that just did not agree with his digestive system, you're going to know it pretty quick. And in much of Europe, they have individual closets. You go in, shut the door, there's no contact with anyone in the next stall or whatever. And in that case, you don't have to worry about if the person next to you is a woman or the person next to you is transsexual or whatever. Who cares? It's total privacy. And I personally like that idea. Okay, I really do like that idea. And so the thing is, maybe this is something that we should pursue. But I do not think this issue is just one that centers on such things as someone's feelings. Or if you have a situation where you're kind of unsure what bathroom someone should use. I mean, I've seen some biologically born women who've taken hormones, probably, maybe had mastectomies and everything, and they seriously, they have beards, they look like guys, okay? And vice versa, where you have men who have taken hormones, may or may not have sexual reassignment surgery, and they look like women. And, you know, the thing is, that's kind of an awkward situation, obviously, if you're a mother with her daughter in a bathroom and suddenly this person walks in with a beard and you're like, well, you know, you don't know that this person actually started out as a girl, and so forth. But ultimately, I think there's an agenda behind this. I really do. And I think this is an agenda to get people ready for an eventual draft of women. Now, hold on there before you start going, hey, wait a minute, what's this got to do with bathrooms? I think it has a lot to do with bathrooms, because for some reason, we are starting to see a lot more activity in regards to the resumption of a draft. And this is surprising, because we've been decreasing the size of the military in the United States. I mean, many of the weapons systems that we use now don't need as many people. So if we want to maintain the military level that we do have, and by God, you know, take a look how many bases we have around the world. I mean, it's well over 100 military bases all over the planet. But if we wanted to maintain that, it doesn't seem to me that you would suddenly want this huge influx of people that you would have with a draft, especially since many of them wouldn't want to actually be there. Okay, today we have a volunteer military. You can argue the reasons why the people are there. I personally think a lot of them, I think most of them are very patriotic, but a lot of them are there because there's no other freaking way to get a college education if you happen to be working class or lower middle class, and your parents make a little too much for you to get a college, to get these grants, but they make too little to pay for a standard university. So many young people who can't get a scholarship but still are smart go into the military in order to get an education. But think about, bringing in a whole bunch of people that really don't want to be there, and then ask, why do we want to bring in a whole bunch of people that don't want to be there? That makes me wonder what's on the agenda for the next couple of years. And they do make these kinds of plans. You can look up Wesley Clark, and you look up 7 nations in 7 years or something like that. And you will see the video, it's only 2 minutes long, where he says that right after 9/11, the U.S. government was planning on taking out 7 Middle Eastern nations. Okay? This was all planned. You wouldn't know about that if Wesley Clark had not given this interview that now is on the internet, on YouTube. But, if you had heard about it, you'd think, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Okay, well, sometimes one man's conspiracy theory is another man's agenda. Okay? So, think about this. I'm quoting my book that's going to be coming out in the very near future, The Destiny of Our Past. I'll tell you more about that later. Not today, though. The thing is that the idea that the U.S. government had planned on taking out sovereign nations, their governments, and seems to still be following this plan, you wonder what plans we don't have a general coming out saying, hey, by the way, everyone, guess what? Here's who we're going to be at war next with. Now, I'm bringing this up in this sense because I'm also noticing NATO having a lot of exercises near Russia. At the same time, you have the United States kind of pushing things in the South China Sea. Okay? Now, one thing that most people are probably not aware of is that if you turn 18 in a nation like Sweden now they have the thing where, sort of like the draft registration thing for guys that exist in the United States, where, you have to just kind of go in and fill out a form and supply some information in case there was a draft. In Sweden now they've had this, but now they're including women. And my guess would be that if there was some sort of war in which Sweden just happened to be part of, that you So, if they suddenly join NATO and then NATO gets a war started, the thing would be that this would be an all-inclusive military. All-inclusive. Male and female. And I think that's what they have planned for the United States. Now, for bathrooms, and I'm going to go through stuff here just to illustrate this, but what's one of the obstacles that's going to be in the way? Psychologically, the way that males see females. And I think it was the Israeli military that tried having women in combat roles, and they found actually that males will take huge risks to save a fellow soldier who was female. And so it actually created more casualties in the long run. And, that just goes into this idea that males will be like jumping in there to protect. There's this video I've seen on the internet where it shows situations where, people have filmed in various, I don't know what circumstances were, but you might have some people on the beach. This girl's yelling at a guy, and suddenly she slaps him, and then he starts to slap her back, and all these guys converge on him. Okay? It seems to be kind of a natural thing. Even though she hit him first, guys will come to her defense if he tries something that's physical to her. So a girl gets shot, she's holding on to her intestines, and she's under fire. And the guys are going to be way more likely to jump out there and try to do something. I mean, I'm not trying to say, girls are not capable of doing this and this and this and this. I'm just saying males, guys, male gender will try to protect the female. And the thing is, how do you deal with that? How do you deal, for instance, like right after World War II, they did these studies that found that only 10% of soldiers fired at the enemy that were on the front lines because they could not bring themselves to kill another person. They fired above them, around them. It was 10% of the guys that were actually shooting to kill. And so they instituted policies in the boot camps and so forth to kind of get into this whole B.F. Skinner thing where you show a target, and that's stimulus in your response, shoot the target. And you do this over and over and over and over again to where it creates somewhat of a muscle memory. So, but in this case, it would be a neural memory in which the person would suddenly see a soldier on the other side and immediately fire and not think about, should I be doing this? Is that a human being I'm shooting? Does this human being have a wife, kids, family, mother that's waiting for him at home? All these kinds of things. And I think you'd have to find some ways to try to get people to not make these gender distinctions, male and female. And so this could be, mind you, I'm not saying it is, but could be a way of trying to erase that. I mean, it may be, for all we know, in the near future. I mean, first we were thinking, whoa, bathrooms, but then it could turn into showers, in which, you could have a situation where you see this in a lot of sci-fi movies, the female soldiers, and I'm going to get into this in a moment too. Female soldiers, male soldiers, they're all showering together. And it's just like, yeah, whatever. And the thing is that it would be so much easier for the military to integrate women into combat situations if you could get rid of as many of these distinctions as possible. Okay, is that a conspiracy theory? I don't know, okay? It might be, it might not be, it may just be part of a plan. Was it a conspiracy theory when Edward Bernays was able to cause women to adopt smoking and get men to see it as a way of them, showing their freedom and being part of the American dream? Okay? I mean, if you take a look at how he did it, it was definitely a conspiracy behind the scenes. Just like with getting people to have small families in the Western world. It was done through showing small families in media. It was done through showing the bigger families in a negative light and the smaller families in a positive light. And finally, it ingrains into the minds of the people, and therefore it gets institutionalized. It becomes the norm, and people don't even know where the norm came from. It's just, oh, this is the way we do things, even though it wasn't something that came from the bottom up. It wasn't organic. It was something that was actually planned. Now, the thing is, if we take a look at some of the things going on right now, some of the things that seem to be suspicious is that, first of all, we have a situation in which, again, we've had proposals get through both the House and Senate committees dealing with such things as military draft and so forth, and making it out, and they may be voted on. Okay? I really don't think Obama would veto them. In fact, Obama's new military director last year said that if women want to be in combat roles, they have a right to do so. Now, that is, of course, their choice. Men don't get that choice, but, women at this point do. However, if you start then showing examples of, oh, this woman did this, got the Purple Heart, took out, I don't know how many people who were the bad guys. It's always the bad guy. America's never, not fighting the bad guys. It's always, we're on the good guy side. The thing is that eventually it's going to become not choice, but it becomes mandatory. All right? Okay, you're going to... Alicia, you're going to be assigned this combat role. Even though Alicia might be going, I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm not even supposed to be here. Someone drafted me. Okay? Again, men feel this way too, but you can say that there's going to be a bigger push to try to get women to feel more at ease in accomplishing these goals. Now, another thing that really gets me, and you can check this, just Google Iron Man and Transformers censored by the U.S. military for getting too close to the truth. It was an article in the July 11th, 2015 Mirror. And what's interesting, it was pointing out that Hollywood and the Pentagon are a little closer than I think most people realize. Okay? They're a lot closer. And the interesting thing is that, you can't prove it. And I'm not going to start saying, well, this movie this and this movie that, because I have no way of knowing. But the thing is that if the Pentagon wants Hollywood to start showing more women in combat roles, that will make it the norm. I mean, you can take a look at science fiction. It's perfect. A lot of the science fiction movies now, starting in about the late 1990s, started showing women Marines, women fighters, pilots, and so forth. And it's starting to get more and more and more that way, where all of a sudden, you've got women out there fight breast in a shower scene with the guys, or is it something to kind of get you used to this idea? And, kind of get rid of those barriers so that it would work out better in a war situation. Those are some questions you should ask. But I think actually, ultimately, people should start, type in things like, what is I've heard of this, type in Google CIA entertainment liaisons. Type in U.S. military / entertainment industry. And so forth. Just at least learn why it always, I guess, is. I mean, maybe that's just the way it is. I don't know. That's the United States that always saves the world. I mean, and that has propaganda power. But aside from the fact that we're always, as the United States, we're always going to whoop the aliens, the thing is that you're still looking at other things that go into this. I mean, my dad was in World War II. He said it was hell. He would not talk about it. He refused to even give details about anything. He just said, I talked to a lot of others that said the same thing. They wanted nothing. It was just, my dad refused to have weapons in the house when I was growing up because he so hated this idea of killing. And the thing is, if you look at movies from that period, they may be all like, yeah, let's go get the Germans or let's go get the Japanese or whatever. But they weren't quite as comic book style as the movies you see in recent years that deal with war, where it's just like all these guys are like revved up on a gallon of testosterone and like, let's go kill the, whatever. Be it, I don't know, Russians, Arabs, Chinese, whatever. But the thing is that there seems to have been this kind of evolution of movies to where it just turned into almost like a video game. Go get the enemy. They're just like on those those old Alien Invader consoles. You push the button, pew 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 pew, and they disappear and vanish. And that seems to be the way that war is presented to a large degree in popular media now. And believe me, if World War II is a good example, that's not the way that men felt about having to go to war with each other. They didn't like it. Okay? But the media makes it sound like, yeah, let's go get them, gung-ho, and all this kind of stuff. And so the thing is that it bears some investigation, but sometimes things aren't as they seem on the face of it. And this bathroom thing, again, I mean, the idea of when I was a kid and having to take a shower in front of other people, that freaked me out when I was a kid. In fact, I don't even like the idea that you force people to take showers for PE, because, I mean, I'd rather deal with the idea of some, maybe some smelly kids in class than the idea of having to disrobe in front of even members of the same sex. So that's really not a huge issue. And I've been in Europe, gone, you go into a swimming pool, you go into the sauna or the steam room, and there's men and women naked. But that's a choice. That's a choice that a person can say, okay, go in there, they're naked, so what? Okay? But in a public school setting, you're forcing people to do it. And I actually disagree with forcing kids to have to disrobe, unless you had some sort of curtains up, like a lot of university shower rooms, they have curtains to where or health clubs. A lot of health clubs do this. And a lot of European swimming pools will have it to where when you shower, you go in, you shower inside. If you're really not wanting to show off to everyone, you can just wrap a towel around yourself after the water's off and step out and go get your clothes. Now, maybe this is what we should be doing. Personally, my personal opinion is, I don't really, if that's kind of a situation, I don't care if the person next to me is, if I've agreed to it, I don't care if they're man, woman, in the process of switching to another. It doesn't really freak me out. But then again, I want to know what it is that has caused the government to suddenly take an issue that used to not even it wasn't even out in the public eye. Normally it takes a social issue a lot more exposure, and then also, but then this has caught fire. And that always makes me suspicious. What's going on there? And we know that the media itself, I'm not talking about the entertainment industry, I'm talking about news and so forth. We know that they're cozy with the government. Okay? We know that there's a special relationship that's especially grown since the mid-1990s between the media and the U.S. government. It's not your media that existed in the 1960s and early 70s when it came to the Vietnam War, when there was really kind of an antagonistic relationship. No, that is gone. So has that idea of, I'm going to go in there, especially with the corporate media. It doesn't seem to be the way it was in those days when some reporter said, I'm going to uncover all of this stuff going on with the government. What are they doing? That doesn't seem to be the case now. It almost seems like the corporate media in the United States is more of a PR firm for whatever the government is saying that they want to do in regards to mega economic issues, macroeconomic issues, trade bills, military, foreign policy, that sort of thing. Sure, there can be all kinds of discussion about things like gun control or abortion, but not on those. There are certain areas where it just seems that there is this overlap that exists, that you don't talk about those things. And I did have a professor, a very conservative professor, I might add, who said that when it comes right down to it, and this was in the 1980s, the Republican and Democratic parties have certain agendas that overlap with each other, and they're not going, they may pay lip service, but they're not going to do anything to disrupt those things. And so Republicans should not be so surprised when the Republican leadership actually seems to be trying to sabotage Donald Trump. And Democrats should not be surprised when it seems like the establishment Democrats are trying to sabotage Bernie Sanders. Okay, maybe this election people will start thinking, wait a minute, something's just not right here. It would be like if you're watching a sports game, and that seems to be what a lot of people understand, so fine, let's use a sports analogy. It's like if you had a football game, and right before a big play, the coaches and the quarterbacks from both football teams get together, start talking, they start laughing and patting each other on the back, and then they go back out on the field. Well, everyone will be going, wait a minute, is there a fix in this? Have they decided who's going to make the touchdown and who's going to win this game? Well, take a look at your politicians now. Now, it's the same thing. You don't see it. It's not right out there in the plain view, but look at what they agree on. And then look at the little things they disagree on. The Republicans, they're going to go out there and cut some food stamps. Okay, and then the Democrats go, you shouldn't cut those food stamps. But then, you got to, a program that's designed to help people be able to eat when they may not have a job or they're not making enough money to pay the rent. That's what the government goes after. That's what the Republicans go after. And then the Democrats can then come in and say, well, we're here to champion these people, but they're both voting for the massive military programs that dwarf anything in regards to welfare or food stamps or something like that. So it's something to look at. It really is. But that's why we have, for the time being at least, this is why we have access to independent media. And, I think it's interesting that you find that there's independent media that's really far left. And they're saying the same things as the independent media that you would consider far right is saying. They have a different political philosophy, but they ultimately have the same goal. It's like if certain goals. It'd be like if you have an atheist couple and a Christian couple, and they totally disagree with how you should teach the kids about religion. But they're going to agree 95% about, parents should love their kids. Parents should raise their kids with certain core values. Yes, if you're a Ted Cruz supporter, yes, there are atheists out there that are teaching their kids values, okay? In the same way, atheist people out there, Christians actually do teach their kids how to analyze and to think deeply as well. All right? So let's just remember that we should have more in common. But ultimately, the Christian couple, the atheist couple, they want to see their kids on graduation day as being well-rounded, good, honest people. Okay? That's their goal. Now, the same thing is true of the Bernie Sanders people and the Trump people. Ultimately, even the Hillary people, most of the people want the same thing. Prosperous country that allows for opportunity and for fairness. And so we need to consider that. But all of us, again, left wing, right wing, in the middle. I don't care if you're gay, straight, transgender. I don't care. Let's look at these issues together and try to figure out what the agenda is. What are those coaches and quarterbacks in our government who are patting each other on the back and smiling, what is their ultimate goal? Okay? Now, what I would like to cover relates right back to what I'm talking about here when it comes to, well, social networking and media. And that is how you can magnify your presence. Okay? How you can magnify your presence and be able to actually have a much greater influence on what's going on in the country, or for that matter, the world. Now, the thing is this. I remember when I was in university and I had a professor. He said that really the significance of one vote is not that great. It really isn't. I mean, if you really think about it, you've got, let's say you live in a state like Oregon, where you might get a couple million votes cast. Unless it's a really, 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 really close election, then it's not going to make that huge of difference. Now, of course, everyone should vote. It's dumb not to take part in the process. But ultimately, it's only a very small minority of people who do anything beyond voting. And he said, I can't remember the exact figure he gave, but he said something about the number of people that even, and he counted these as political activities, okay? And I think he said it was only 5% of people who put up a yard sign, put a bumper sticker on their car, become a precinct person in their local precinct, and then therefore have an influence on the party, write letters to the editor, and this was before social media. So those are pretty simple things to be able to have an influence. And yet very few people do it. Now let me put it to you straight here. There are 6 giant corporations that control almost everything you hear and much of what you read, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and or listen to on the radio. They control so much that ultimately you're going to only hear in the mainstream media a certain narrative. Now that narrative might go a little bit more conservative or a little bit more liberal. When you contrast them, it's going to depend on which one of your networks you're talking about. But it's still going to be pretty much the same old status quo on many, many issues. So ultimately, we have been given a gift since I was in that class with this particular professor, and that is the internet. Now, before you go, oh, yeah, I use the internet and all that kind of stuff, most people actually don't use the internet, not to its fullest potential. And I'm going to try showing you how you can do that, how you can make that how you can magnify that vote to perhaps represent thousands of voters, in the sense that you might be able to switch votes that people would normally have given. And, sometimes, hey, I'm guilty of it. I feel like, you hear voters and how little they know about things, how little, you listen to a Mark Dice video and you're going, oh my gosh, where do these people actually go to school that he's interviewing out there on the beaches? But really, I got to give a little bit more credit to people, because even though they may not be super knowledgeable about what's going on politically, socially, and culturally, most of them still have a sense of right and wrong. Okay? Most of them really do. And I don't care if they're atheists, hippies, Wiccans, Christians, Protestants, whatever. Most of them have a very strong sense of fairness and what's right and wrong. It may be changing as society goes, but the people that'll be at the fault if it does change is the people that don't do anything about it. Now, the thing is this. Here I'm going to give you a step-by-step process by which you can influence many, many, many people. Hey, you may not be the next, I don't know, you may not be the next Alex Jones or someone with, over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and that sort of thing. But every little bit helps. And maybe the one person that you kind of inspire to start looking a little deeper will be the person who might later be someone that does things really fantastic and monumental and positive. Okay? So, let's take a look. I'm going to say step 1. Take a little a plan from the playbook of Obama during 2008 and again in 2012. And that is the effective use of YouTube. Okay? How to use it. The media, they show up, they film something, and they give their narrative. Okay? What I used to do is take young people to things where the media was covering it, and I'd say, you report on this the way you would report it if you were a reporter, and then watch how it's reported on the news. No better way to cause people to suddenly lose their faith in the media. Okay? No better way. Okay? But now here's the thing. You go to I'll just say an example here. Just an example. You go to a Trump rally. And there's a bunch of people out there, and they are hurling insults or worse at people as you're going in. And then you notice on your nightly news that that's not even covered. Or I've seen headlines, and they're very deceptive. It'll say Trump protesters attack innocent people. Something like that. Now, the thing is, I had to be, that sentence, it really is twisting things to a certain degree. Because when you read Trump protesters, you're thinking, or at least many people are thinking, that's the Trump people that are attacking innocent people. Okay? And most people only read the headlines in a newspaper. Okay? They're looking for whatever that interests them the most. Okay? They see something about Trump. Maybe they're not so interested in the presidential election right now. They see Trump protesters attack innocent bystanders or, something like that. And the thing is, you read about 3, 4, 5 paragraphs, and then it's clear that these were people attacking people who were showing up for the Trump rally. Okay? It wasn't Trump people causing the violence. It was other people doing it. Now, most people are not going to go into the alternative media and stuff and see this and realize that what really happened was not the way it's reported by the mainstream press. So that means how do you get it out there? Well, one thing, film it. Get yourself a YouTube station. It's pretty easy to do. Okay, sign up for one. That'll enable you to upload video. Now, you can put your own commentary. You can do a variety of things. I actually would really strongly discourage too much negative editorializing while you're showing people, because it could be that, well, I've never heard of it, but you never know. I mean, it may be that you're editorializing and someone's getting film that has nothing to do with it. Sometimes just show the film. If nothing else, whether maybe it's not a protest. There's one part, you go in there, you film Donald Trump saying something. You take the clip that you like and you put that on YouTube. Well, now he's not just speaking to his 30,000 people at the rally, but whoever happens across it on YouTube. And the thing is, you go in there, you tag it, you put it out there, and lo and behold, you get 50 views. And you're feeling like, well, that was a big waste of time. Was it? Think about if you were able to share something with 50 people just out of the blue. If suddenly you show up at the mall and start talking about why you're voting for Trump or whatever the issue is. 50 people start listening to you. You'd think that was pretty impressive, wouldn't you? 50, you go home, talk to the husband, talk to the wife, and say, hey, 50 people gathered and I explained something to them about, Donald Trump. Well, ultimately, it doesn't feel like a lot when you maybe look at a video from someone else and it says 50,000, but you're 50. You've affected them. And it's also there for others to look at. Now, I'm going to give you a clue of how to increase that too, and that is this. You go to the newspaper articles. They're easy to find. I mean, you just type into Google, let's say you're doing the protest thing. You're wanting everyone to see what happened with those protesters. Okay? Actually, RT does a good job of that. I'll say that. Russia Today. They do a great job sometimes just filming protests and then just putting it there and letting people watch. Gain your own conclusions from it. Now, that's my personal best way of doing it too. Yeah. You go in there and you type into Google, protest at Trump rally. It'll give you the news, where they're covering this. You got your little video there. Well, what you could do is, and I don't encourage spamming, don't just stick your video there and run. But maybe someone says, something about the protest. And what you could say is, hey, I was there, or I was at the rally that took place in San Jose or whatever. And here's what I saw. And you put that on there. Suddenly you're getting a few more views on your YouTube video. Maybe someone's going to share it. You do that on a few sites. You go through and you editorialize. You put something there so it's not spam. You say a few things, put your video on as a supplement, and, most of the time it'll go through. Sometimes you'll get, they won't put stuff on that links to anything. But most of the time it will. At least that's my history with it, or the way I've seen it. Now, you're starting now maybe to get a few subscribers to your YouTube station. So maybe a couple more people, subscribe. Then the next time you put a video up, they're alerted as to when you've put a new video up. So maybe now you're not starting out with 0. You're starting out with a few people that will click on automatically. And that will grow. Okay? And you could just do things like you sit there. I've seen some videos that have got like 200,000-300,000 views where someone just sits in a car and says, here's how I feel about this issue. And it just gets shared. Now, it could just be that you get 100. So what? That's 100 people that listen to you. Now, the other thing you can do is set up a blog and do exactly the same thing with YouTube. In fact, sometimes you write your article. It's easy to do, just a few, sometimes just a couple paragraphs. I know people will say, well, the best blogs are the ones that go into lots of detail and they take up like 3,000 words. No, because most of the time, and you know for a fact that you click on an article from a blog that has 3,000 words and you're not going to look it up. You're not going to read the whole thing. You're going to glance through. It's better to keep it short. And then maybe even have, if you're talking about that protest, you have a link to your video. See what I'm saying now? You're getting a feedback loop here. Now, you talk about what's important to you on the blog. Just make entries. Doesn't have to be well researched. It could just be your opinion, because ultimately studies that were done throughout the 70s on how people pick up information, how they process it, and so forth, shows that while it may be important initially to show really good, credible information, what's most important is how you put it across. Now, again, I always back my stuff up. Okay, I always do. But I may just find one really good article on something or one concept, and then I'll cite some stuff from that. I'm not going to go through and it's not a term paper for a 400 level political science class, where you have to have 20 different sources, footnotes, or AMA style, American Psychological Association style, and all that kind of stuff. You don't need to do that. Don't get bogged down. Maybe you are that kind of person that wants to do that. Fine, do it. But You set up a blog. And you can use that in the same exact way. You write something really cool, maybe about, I don't know, let's just choose an issue. You deal with the TTIP trade bill or the Trans-Pacific trade bill. Either one of those two. You write a little bit about it, and then you look and find somewhere where they're talking about this. And a lot of times that's going to be on independent media. The big networks don't seem to want to, huge issue, giant issue, going to affect everyone's lives. And yet, we don't want to cover that. There's got to be something else more important. Hey, look, we found a dog with 2 heads, or something like that. Now, the thing is, you put that out, you go to the sources where they're talking about this, and you give your opinion and link your blog. Now, what's happening now is some people see your YouTube station and then they go to your blog. Some people see your blog and then they go to your YouTube station, and and it goes back and forth, and both will start growing. So a really quick word of advice: someone hacked into and destroyed my website, and fortunately, I had a Mir website where I'd save my articles. I just didn't publicize that particular one. And I will note something. On one website, I was getting, about 100 views a day. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 100. That's 100 people reading something I wrote about a psychological or political issue. The other one was only getting maybe 1, 2 views a day, just sitting there. The tags would bring people in. So ultimately, you have to promote yourself a little bit. And, if you're going to go out there and you're going to spout off on, underneath a newspaper article or something like that and give your opinion, back yourself up with the article you wrote or the YouTube video you shot or produced. It will increase the amount of people who are going to hear you. And you may influence people not just here in the United States, but you may influence people in other countries who are thinking, wow, I didn't know that was going on. Okay, I linked to I have a lot of people I know who are outside of the United States, and they didn't know that these violent protests were taking place at Trump rallies. And then if they did know that it was taking place, they had been given the impression by the European press that it was Trump supporters doing it. Okay? And so, you may be that beacon of truth that people will see. And it doesn't have to just be on political issues. It can be on things like prepping. It can be on things like alternative education. It can be on things of alternative history. It could be on religion. It can be on the occult, if you want it to be. Any of those kind of subjects. Get it out there. Magnify your presence. You're right now, who knows how long this is going to last, okay? Who knows how long this wild, wild west that allows total libertarian freedom on the internet will last. I was reading an article the other day of how in England they're cracking down on people on social media and arresting them. Now, I've seen some of these articles that someone will say something, and it's probably pretty stupid. I always figure there's someone watching whenever I put something on social media, so therefore I don't. I may be angry at a politician or something, but I'm certainly not going to write something that's stupid, okay, because I don't know who's reading it and who's going to be coming and knocking on my door. But if you word it nicely, in most places, nothing's going to happen. Or if you put a good argument in. Don't let your emotions totally take hold of you. Okay? Make sure to write your opinion. And any opinion can be taken to an extreme. My gosh, you could be a vegan and write in such a way that people are thinking, hey, wait a minute, we may want to go take a look at this person and see what's going on there. But there's all kinds of issues. And there's all kinds of stands you can take on those issues. And there's ways you can present yourself that will actually be following the old, golden rule, treat other people as you would have them treat you. Okay? Usually politics and public figures and stuff like that don't apply to those things. So, ultimately, you've got this wonderful opportunity to get out there and really make change. And if you see the acceleration of a lot of various scary trends out there, maybe now is a time to really be saying something and not just waiting until that time where it's like, hey, wait a minute, what happened? So if there's 100,000 people out there that are really working hard to get some sort of message out to people, that message will get out there. It may be accidental. Someone's looking up a kitty cat YouTube video, and they see yours on the right-hand side, and they're going, what's that all about? And they click it on out of curiosity. Okay? I mean, think about that. That's how things operate. So it is kind of a numbers game. Flood the area. And I'm not even talking about protests. If you go to a political rally and there's 30 people who would film that rally and put that on YouTube, that will probably result, because some of them are going to have lots of subscribers, some of them have 0 subscribers, but what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot more views than that newspaper article perhaps would have gotten. And the newspaper article goes in, most of the time people don't access it anymore after a day or two, even if it's on the net. But YouTube and so forth, that could be accessed anytime. As long as the video is up there, it's still getting accessed, okay? Now, some of the more traditional methods I'd really promote, even though, again, we're living in the internet age, is try to do some letters to the editor, okay? If you write an article, if you write a blog, and it's maybe 200-word entry about your opinion about something, and you copy it, maybe make a couple changes here or there, and, stick it on as a letter to the editor in your local newspaper. And that's going to magnify your influence on people. And if you just keep doing this kind of thing, and you can just imagine. I mean, I don't know. This was a long time ago I heard this, so I don't know if it's still the case. But I was told in another political science class that a letter to the editor reaches about 1/3 of the readership of that newspaper. Okay, it is actually a very popular section. And I remember when I used to write letters to the editor a lot before the internet, but still, when I wrote letters a lot, I would just get people out of the blue, and they would say, hey, are you the guy that wrote that? And I'm like, yeah, real great job. I didn't know these people. They knew me because someone else knew me, and then they pointed out. So this is a way that you can reach more people. You want to be more creative than that? You can create memes and put them out there. You like photography? There's programs out there. There's apps where you can turn your photography into memes, where you can take your picture, upload it, and then put statements and send it out. And, you don't know how many people are going to pick up on the meme. And if you take the picture, it's not subject to someone else's copyright. Okay? It could be something positive. Let's just not talk politics. It could be something dealing with spirituality. It could be something dealing with families. And you throw it out there, and, you get that out there on Facebook, and pretty soon you might be getting, you might only get 10 people that share it. But you never know. It could also wind up being 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 ultimately. So you can really reach out there with a lot. There are people I know who have set up that they're really into artsy stuff, but they also have strong political stands. And what they will do is they'll set up something on a site where you put a lot of photography, maybe Pinterest or something like that. And then they'll just make note of something. They might take a picture at a rally that they go to, and they just put it in there saying, I really enjoyed what so-and-so said at this rally that I attended. I'd really encourage people to look this up. Now, the thing is, that's not usually a place, even Tumblr, you can even do that. But the thing is, you can have a little quick explanation, and you don't know how much that can affect people as well. Okay? So think about all those things. You could do you could do something like this. You could do a podcast. You could do a podcast that's just one of those free podcast things where, you're not reaching anyone, okay? But if you just do a podcast and it's one of those things where there's like 10,000 people that have signed up and they have their little code and then they go in and do their podcast. But I actually know someone does this. They do their podcast and then they turn it into a YouTube video and put it out. And they can name their show anything they want to. Now, don't take someone else's name of a show. Please don't take Unlock the Door Radio. But the thing is, you could take it and you could put it out there and people listen to it. And it's kind of like what Edward Bernays once said when he was in an interview, that the guy that's like the father of modern advertising. He was, I think it was on Letterman or something. And he was introduced, and I think he was introduced as Dr. Edward Bernays. And Bernays noted that now people are going to listen to me more because you said doctor. And so sometimes if you were to, just, on your own podcast, you can name yourself something. And then you say, yeah, this is so-and-so from such and such program. Well, already you're catching people a little bit more. And maybe soon people start subscribing to your podcast. And so when you do put something on, they tune into you. That's the big thing right now with the internet. It allows you to do all these wonderful, fantastic things. So ultimately, please, get out there. Consider what I've said. Play this over, see what you think can glean from it, and get out there and do something to magnify your influence. Anyway, gotta sign off now. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you back next week here on Unlock the Door Radio.